Arsenal come streaming forward now in surely what will be their last attack. A good ball by Dixon, finding Smith. For Thomas, charging through the midfield. Thomas, it's up for grabs now. Thomas, right at
the end. Hello, ladies and gentlemen, and welcome to this episode of Gooners in the USA. Mike, happy Yom Kippur, Merry Yom Kippur. How do you say it?
You don't say it either of those ways.
Well,
it's not a happy holiday at all, but we made it through.
I want to ask, I need to ask, at the end of the fast, how many Baconators did you consume?
I consumed somewhere between 3 and 155 Baconators.
So
actually, no, it was actually just chicken salad and egg salad. That was it. But then when I got home later that night after Jake's game, I consumed a fairly large porterhouse steak.
Now you're an older gentleman, but does it get easier over the time that you've been doing this, or is it always like just by the 20th hour you're just looking at everyone and they just look like a Baconator, or how does that work?
Well, that happens after 1 hour, so I mean it doesn't take Yom Kippur to inspire that, but. Let's get back on the football track. It's not a bad week to be a Gooner, I would say. I'm excited,
It's been a great week to be a Gooner, and I'm happy that we've got two great guests to share in this marvel of a week.
That's right, we do. We have two first-time guests. I guess long-time first-time.
Long-time first-time, hello.
But both have been participating in the pod quite a bit, especially lately. So first guy we became aware of.
Did your voice just crack?
Of the summer. What'd you say?
Did your voice just crack?
Maybe. I just had my bar mitzvah last week. So late last summer, we started talking about the typical, idiotic, stupid banter on the podcast. And then a couple hours later, out of nowhere on Twitter would come this Photoshop picture of exactly what we just described with an extra hilarious twist. So just made me laugh my ass off. And I promised him at some point we would have him on the pod.
Yeah.
And I'm paying off. So he's from New York. Hopefully we'll catch a game with him at O'Hanlon's the next time I'm up there. But, he's contributed so much to the banter on this podcast. We had to have him on. So Twitter handle is @SebbyV21, better known as Seb. Welcome to the pod.
What's up, guys? Thanks for having me.
My pleasure, man. Thanks. It's not like we have interns, although Andy likes to talk about our butlers and our staff and our writing crews. But I mean, really, we're just paupers.
We're just two normal guys.
But you are the closest thing to a find, and we are in debt to you for your creativity and banter. But and I'll ask you a little bit about that in a minute. Our second guest is someone who I've met on a couple of occasions. Very charming young man. He's a member of the crew of Arsenal, which is the New Orleans Arsenal Supporters Club branch of Arsenal America, and therefore he is, I believe, on the planning committee or heavily involved in the planning of Gooner Gra 5, which is the biggest annual Gooner gathering in the U.S. that isn't surrounding a visit from the team themselves. So it's a 4-day party. We'll talk about it, but any Gooners worldwide need to get their asses to that, and his name is Fredo. Welcome to the pod, Fredo.
Thank you so much. Thank you for having me. I really appreciated the accommodations in the green room. That was really nice.
You're welcome. You're welcome.
Did the hands go over well?
I was going to say, she's great.
But no, actually, he's great. We can't afford an actual woman, so we
Mike, we put a wig on him and we pretend.
Well, yeah, but now he knows. All right, so Seb, getting back to you, Seb. So tell us quickly, what started the whole Arsenal fandom, and more importantly to us, of course, when did you discover the pod and start making me shit my pants laughing? Not
Must have been around like 1990. It was 1997, 1998 season. We just started getting like Fox Sports World here in New York City, pretty much in the States, really, and
no, it was just New York City. They just funneled it into one city.
Yeah, and I caught an Arsenal game, and my parents are French, so there was Emmanuel Petit and Patrick Vieira playing, and I just, like, growing up here in New York, there was not too many, like, I was like the only French kid in my class, and like every time I would meet somebody, like, wow, you're the only French person I ever met, So it was like, oh, okay. So it was really cool, like seeing like French sports stars playing and doing well, and they won the league that season. They won the double, right? And that season,
In '98, yeah.
Yeah.
98.
So
And the World Cup, I believe.
Yeah.
yes, they did. Yeah.
That's the one
And
World Cup.
yeah, so that's how I became an Arsenal fan.
How was the French thing with the ladies? I mean, they that probably had to be pretty good for you.
Yeah, I did all right with that. Yeah, sure.
All right, so then out of nowhere comes these memes. I think I traced back the first one. I don't know if you remember which one the first one was, but it was back in June, and I tweeted that I was watching the U.S. Gold Cup game with some douchebag American Spurs fan, who I said looked like Louis C.K. and as far as I was concerned, he could eat a bag of dicks. And like an hour later, I look at my phone and I fell off the bar stool. And then I looked and I saw your tweet. But it's this guy. It's Louis C.K. in a Spurs thing with all kinds of like menorahs and shit around, which I think is fucking hilarious. And he's holding a bag of Lay's potato chips, and it says a bag of dicks on it. And instantly I was in love. So
yeah, it was during the summer, right? Yeah, so there was not much going on as far as football wise, like the other pods that I listened to, and then I wanted to find a new pod, and I saw you guys. I never listened to you before, and I just listened to it, and then I was just following you on Twitter, and then I saw that, and I was like, I love Louis C.K. I think he's hilarious, and that bag of dicks bit is probably one of the funniest things I've ever heard in my life. So for somebody else to know him and know that bit, I was like a match made in heaven, I guess.
Oh, it was perfect. And some of your other masterpieces include an A-team number with Andy, me, Ola, and Lee Judges, which just, I mean, you're making waves across the pond.
It's unbelievable. It's unbelievable.
The fever pitch rendition with Kenny Ken protecting me and Judge from a tornado. Although technically it should have been Andy, not Lee, in that seat, and he hasn't forgiven you for that yet. But
I'm sorry.
And then the wrecking ball catastrophe of 2017 last week with my face was superimposed on Ron Jeremy's body on top of the Miley Cyrus wrecking ball.
I hope that you have like a significant other who's just looking over your shoulder thinking, what the fuck is he doing?
What was scary to me about that was that I thought that was my body. Like I was like, how the hell did he get a picture of my body on there? And then I was like, oh no, that must be Ron Jeremy. So
that one's kind of tame compared to the ones like me and my buddies have like a thread going on. Like the shit that I put on them and the situations I put them in are nothing compared to that.
So someday we'll get the like the deep cuts, the deep tracks that aren't released.
Yeah, I'm afraid to go really all the way in. You guys might stop talking to me.
I'm afraid to piss you off now. So and Fredo, we I don't think I know I've met you a few times, hung out with you, but I don't think I know your Arsenal Genesis story. So tell us about that and how things got started with the crew.
Well, what's interesting, it's similar in nature to what happened with Seb. It's back to that '98 World Cup. Weirdly enough, Fox Sports World was happening, and you were seeing a lot more of soccer here in America. And then all of a sudden, one thing like, hey, I remember that player. Like, he was good as Dennis Bergkamp, and well, he's still playing great and looks amazing. And then next thing you know, it's like, oh, he's playing with that guy. And I remember him from the World Cup, and it's Thierry Henry. And it's like when Patrick Vieira, oh yeah, wasn't he on the same team? So all of a sudden, it's like all these players that I saw in '98, like a couple of years later, just kind of clicked into, oh, they're all in the same team. Well, why don't you just slowly but surely, and just like whenever you used to get like at 2:00 in the morning, like a replay. I don't know if anybody remembers that. Like Fox Sports would put like it was like a Tuesday, 2 a.m. and I would be looking forward to hoping that they'd have Arsenal on, and slowly like that's how I kind of got hooked. And then with the crew, it was just a bunch of the same guys who similar in nature, just slowly coalesced around, oh hey, they're showing soccer at this pub, and they would just start showing up, and there I gotta give the props to guys like Omar and Colin who just kind of started getting together, and slowly but like I said, slowly but surely, everybody just came together to kind of start forming. Like, oh, okay, we're all hanging out, and hey, let's make it official.
And it's a great group of men and women that go there. Very, very, very active, and so tell us. I mean, this is going to be the 5th year of Gunnar Gras. I finally made it there last year. I was supposed to go the year before, but had a little blizzard-related mishap. So it was just one of the best times I've had as an Arsenal supporter, and it had really only an hour and a half or so to do with Arsenal actually playing. But tell us how it started, and give anyone out there that might not be planning on going, that you think should be going, tell them what it's all about.
Okay, so about 5.5 years ago or so, a couple of the folks from crew of Arsenal were just hanging around. They're going like, well, it'd be fun. Like, we should combine like Arsenal and Mardi Gras, and that's where the name comes from. From Gunnar Gras for Mardi Gras. And like, well, yeah, that'd be fun. You can come to the parade or come see the match, and then go to a parade, and that'd be fun because that happens to us. We've had instances where you go to the pub and you can't get through because there's a parade running that day. It's the middle of Mardi Gras. And, hey, we're trying to get to a pub. Well, there's a party over here. So they slowly just kind of got. It started as a kind of a lark, as a bit of a joke, and then let's try it out, let's see it, and they kind of got it together. And that first year was really small. I mean, there was no more than us, and then a few other folks like from Chicago, Austin, San Antonio. A few of the people have come back, and then the next year got even bigger. Okay, well, we're doing a bit bigger, and then the next year got even bigger. So what's interesting is that it just keeps growing and growing. And I think last year what's interesting is that we're getting now folks from other parts of, not just from the country, but from other countries, just like, oh yeah, no, I gotta go there. It's a fun. And what it is just it's 4 days. We have events from Thursday through Sunday, depending on when the match falls. And I hate to say it, but sometimes Arsenal hasn't been kind to us. We've had a couple of instances where the match that we got was less than stellar. No fingers are going to be pointed, but getting that Liverpool match sucked for Gunnar Gras.
Yeah.
Years back, was it the 5-0?
Yeah. Oh, yeah. That wasn't good. And then you got Chelsea a couple of years ago, but finally last year was what was it? Hull. And, and that was the game where Theo almost got in an argument because his coffee machine broke or some shit like that.
Yeah, exactly. but what we found is that what the best course of action is just simply have a party. I mean, that's what it is we tie it on to the very first weekend of Mardi Gras, when they have a lot of the smaller walking parades that kind of go on. There's this one called Crew de Vue that takes place Saturday night. And it's one of the older ones. It's one of the more irreverent ones. It's one of the more adult ones. It's the ones where you see people like making like little floats where the president is getting.
I remember that.
By Putin. Guys are like dressed like in costumes like sperm, that kind of thing. So it's a bit of a show, but that's kind of like the event Saturday night. And then, okay, it's slowly but surely, as more people start coming in, okay, let's do something Thursday. Let's do something Friday. Get together here, kind of like a it's a meetup where everybody just comes together and just hangs out, has a good time. And last year was big, and this year coming up is gonna be even bigger. It's just, okay, let's see how big we can get it.
Yeah, don't let the fact that you don't live anywhere near New Orleans, much less in the U.S., stop you from coming. You will not regret it. You'll see a side of the American Gooners that you probably never realized existed. And just don't come if you're planning on hanging out with Joey Murphy, because he will sleep through all of the events.
Oh, no. He has made promises that he will pace himself. He will sleep at his right time. He will be making these events.
He's made promises before. Joey, I love you. All right, so I mean, I can't wait for it. It's January 25th to 28th this year. Is that?
Yeah, Thursday 25th through Sunday the 28th, and that's going to happen regardless, because that's the 4th round of the FA Cup.
Yeah. So if we get knocked out, we're doing it no matter what, right?
If we don't have it, we're already planning a block party at Finn's. If we have it, we'll have the match, and then we'll have the block party at Finn's. So,
sweet.
Win or lose, we will have a party.
Awesome. Well, it's great to have you guys both on the pod. We had 2 guests. We also have 2 games. So, Andy, you want to get us started talking about Bate?
Yeah, Mike, I know you love to start off with a lineup. So what were your thoughts there?
Well, the lineup comes out and it's kind of as expected.
It was heavily debated on our last pod, I would say.
Yeah, we talked about it. Yeah, and whereas I thought you got owned, I now realize that you actually were the owner. But it was a hodgepodge
The OD.
experience. Yeah, the OD. The experienced second teamers, youth players that kind of, even after I saw the lineup, I just didn't really feel confident that we get a result because it was kind of one of those mixed match lineups. But then I looked at the sub bench and made my day, made my entire year because we're playing Bate, Boris, Karloff. And in Boris Karloff Stadium, of all places, on the bench was Vlad Dragomir for his first team debut, and it just couldn't have been any better. And then the game got started. By the end of it, the only thing I really had to be upset about game-wise was that the vampire didn't get on the pitch. But,
yeah, sad times.
But the performance, especially offensively, just blew me away, Andy. I mean, what did you make of it?
Yeah, I always thought on paper we would just, no matter what 11 we put out, whether it was mostly youth or a mixture, we would always be stronger. And I stand by what I said last week. I thought that Callum Chambers, Rob Holding would walk into that Bate defense. But, for me, the biggest takeaway was just the vintage Wilshere that we've seen. And I know we've got to look at the level and the team he was playing against, but, he had lots of one-touch build-up. He was bursting through their forward or their back lines. His vision and execution of his final ball was perfection. He was full of energy. He was playing intelligently. Tactically, I really like him in like an inside forward position. I think that it gives him way more freedom offensively just to play a natural position in game. And then he'll have the center midfield insurance behind him, so he doesn't have to worry about going back to protect the defense. And that hopefully will...
Kind of like Ozil, huh?
Yeah, no, but it'll help alleviate him getting hurt because he does like to dive in on a tackle. But, he also gets to spend time in the game in the areas where he can really make the difference. And, if you watch Jack and you watch Arsenal without him, you see a lot less one-touch quick football, and that opens up teams. And so it'd be amazing if we could figure out a way to get him and Ozil on the pitch. But, I'll go to Sebi first and where he stands on Jack, but I don't want people to confuse my excitement with him being back as, oh my God, everything is fixed. We need to see Jack play consistently as a healthy individual. We've seen Jack at the highest level destroy and dominate teams. Barcelona, Brazil when he played for England, and a lot of others. He's not the Oxlade-Chamberlain type of character where it's like you see Jack and Jill play, right? You've got a great player and then he's off. You see a consistent Wilshere when he's on. Now we just need to see him consistently healthy so we can get the full Jack Wilshere. Sebi, what's your stance on Jack?
I'm exactly on the same page as you. It was so pleasing to see him back on the team because it's like he didn't miss a beat.
Mm-hmm.
The way he the quick movement, the bursting through players to get on the ball, I believe he had a goal disallowed, right? Was that my wrong on that?
No,
yeah.
Actually, I think I seem to recall. Yeah, because we were asking who got that, and it was Jack.
Yeah, mm-hmm. And it was. I thought it was onside, and they called him offsides on it, but it looked onside to me. But the key is to keep him fit, because it's constantly these little injuries that just keep him off the pitch for months and years almost. It's so annoying.
And I think that the way that Arsenal is treating Jack with this return is the best way to do it, because we're all itching to see him play even this morning or today, excuse me. And I think it's good that we're giving him the opportunity to come back very slowly, and we did it with Ramsey back off of this last injury, and we're seeing him kind of progress quicker. We did it with the Chamberlain as well, and look how good he got and how often he got to play. So hopefully this is the way back, and hopefully this new training director who's come in can also help kind of Why are you laughing, Mike?
I don't, because we say that like every 6 months we bring in somebody else in the training team, and we're like, now it's gonna be fixed, and and then
3 months later, it's the same.
Santi Cazorla's foot falls off.
Yeah, well, it's fingers crossed, right? Fingers crossed.
Fingers crossed.
Well, I'm determined not to fall in love all over with him. I probably have a bigger, like, not chip on my shoulder, but like a bigger like emotion guard on when it comes to Jack this time, because we've seen it too many times before. But and plus I only have room for one like ridiculously overblown infatuation at a time, and I'm currently all used up on Kolasinac. So I'm not exactly where you are yet, Andy. I appreciate the kind of the hedging on it a little bit, because I thought you were getting a little too overboard, but you're just excited, so there's nothing.
No, I am. I'm excited. And part of it comes from the fact that he is such a great player, and that he loves Arsenal as much as we all do. And I think that goes missing in sports today. And you don't often find a player who would love to spend their entire career at one club. And I think if he had the opportunity to play, whether it be every match or the way he's playing now, he would be happy to do that. He's not going to go, I remember a couple years ago, City were talking about trying to sign him, and he had the quote, "Why would I go there? I love Arsenal. I want to break Adam's record. I want to be Mr. Arsenal, and that's how I want to be known." And so, hopefully, fingers crossed, we're getting excited because we're seeing him come back. But let's move on to Giroud, because 100 Arsenal goals, a great servant for the Gunners. I was joking on Twitter that his link-up play was just, one touch. But for real, I mean, it was incredible. His link-up play was fantastic. That's a very underrated aspect of his game. And, Fredo, Giroud gets a lot of shit when it comes to his career at Arsenal, but you can't joke about 100 goals. How do you perceive Giroud? Do you think he's a great servant for the club? Do you think he's just a bit part player? I mean, tell us your thoughts.
I think, what's interesting is this. I was saying this to somebody the other day. I think Giroud, had he come like around the time when Ian Wright was playing, like 20 years ago, people would be talking about him like glowingly. But the problem is he came right after Thierry Henry and Robin Van Persie, and specifically took over Van Persie's spot, and that put him in a position where every mistake that he made or any goal he didn't score got compared to whatever the other two would have done in his place, which is almost a bit unfair. I mean, it's, on the one hand, you're brought in to be the center forward, the striker at Arsenal, and there's some expectation that comes with that spot. But at the same time, we tend to undervalue some of the good things he does and overvalue some of the mistakes he's made, and that's not been fair to him. I mean, do I think he's on the level of Ian Wright or Thierry Henry? No, but at the same time, he's been somebody who has worked really hard. As far as we know, he's except for the one time when he got dropped for Joel Campbell because whatever issues he was having. He's never been malcontent on the club. He's always gone in, whether it's starting or off the bench. He does his job, and he tries to do as right for the club as best he can.
Yeah, I completely agree. Mike, sorry, go ahead.
No, I love him so much. I couldn't even wait for you to call on me. You talked about his link-up play, and it just, I mean, Rambo for game-winning goals for 2 out of the 3 FA Cups, the first one and the last one of the recent run. But who's the one that set him up spectacularly on both of those goals? It was Giroud. And I mean, I just think it's time. He does get a lot of shit, and I recall going over there and watching him in the middle of when he was scoring goals for fun, like the Olympiacos game when he got the hat trick. Then he kept scoring after that. And then all of a sudden he went through this 3 or 4 month dry spell. And it seems like that's when everyone kind of started turning sour on him. But I mean, let's just call him what he is. He's probably, if there is such a thing as a 3-tool striker in baseball here in the States, people talk about 5-tool players who have all the different facets to their game. He's a 3-tool striker, and I don't know that there's a lot of them. I mean, there's people who could score more often, but I mean, for a guy leading the line as a number 9 that's that good with his head, that good at passing, at delicate, perfectly weighted passes, and really not too shabby at banging it in with his feet either. from pretty much any place on the pitch.
Mm-hmm.
I mean, it's amazing, and he scores some of the prettiest goals I've ever seen. And the problem with him is that he's been jammed into a situation, like you were saying, Fredo, kind of being the replacement for, him and Podolski, presumably supposed to be replacing Van Persie. But, people were expecting him to be our Kun Aguero from that Man City team 5 years ago, when really he was more of a more effective Edin Dzeko.
Right.
Yeah, that's
good.
You can't say it any better than that, Mike.
Oh, I mean, and you need both. That Man City team wouldn't have been as dynamic if their number one and number two strikers were Edin Dzeko.
Yeah.
He's a really good goal scorer that can play with another striker, like they did sometimes with the two of them, or he can be a plan B to come in and change games. And it's just, I couldn't be happier to see him get the milestone. Obviously I hoped it would be on a typical Giroud goal rather than a penalty, but I'm sure he'll take it either way. And he just seems like the guy that, whether it's here or someplace else, he has the potential to be banging in 20 goals a season well into his 30s.
Well, I think one of the biggest frustrations of Giroud that you could state is that he could have gotten to this milestone a lot quicker because he misses some absolutely horrendous balls. But you forget he's puts himself into the position to be able to connect with those balls, and that's really hard to do. And he's a physical player, and he stays healthy, and I'm going to echo it, like you said, in the air, he's as deadly as an Andy Carroll, and so you got to give him respect. And it makes me laugh when people say, "Well, if he's so good, why doesn't he start for Arsenal and Lacazette in France?" And it's like, no, Lacazette sits because Griezmann plays in that position. Giroud's that distributor, that one-touch player, and so I'm glad that he's in an Arsenal shirt. I'm glad that he didn't leave in the summer, and
Giroud, 3-tool player, Andy Carroll, 1-tool player. That's the difference between the two of them.
Yeah, but his ponytail makes at least another 4
1.5. Yeah, 1.5. So I think there's two things about Giroud that I just want to say. One is it's time for a pie at Piebury Corner. I think the 100-goal mark is the magical thing where you need to have a pie. And we actually talked about this last year on one of our relatively early pods. We designed a bunch of pies for him and asked some of our listeners to do that. So maybe we'll go back and drudge that up. But the other thing is that YouTube mashup that's been going around of all 100 of his goals in 140 seconds. It's just like bang, 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 one after another. And it's just phenomenal. I mean, I came a few times during 140 seconds. You watch that video and tell me nothing comes flying out of your urethra. I mean, it's amazing.
Haven't
and then on the
yet, but...
yeah, Mike, can you post that?
I can't wait.
Just tweet that for us so we can all watch it.
I retweeted a couple days ago, but I'll try. But
okay.
just go on YouTube and look up Giroud 100 goals, 140 seconds, Mike orgasm, and then it'll come right up. It'll come right up.
Is there a dual picture of you and Giroud's goals?
I know there's gonna be now.
It's a little picture. It's like a picture-in-picture on the lower right-hand corner.
Don't do that at work. Do not do that at work.
Yeah, it's marked not suitable for work.
Fredo's saying that like someone who knows. I'm on my 4th job. All right. And on the complete other side of the spectrum from our love for Giroud, Andy.
Yeah, we got to go to Theo because he scored 2 goals. But you know what, Mike? Good for him. If the fucking goalie's going to spill the ball into your path, you better score the 2 fucking goals. I'm sorry. But
you were already doing damage control as the ball was going into the back of the net.
I mean, literally, he kicked it at the keeper for one of the goals, who didn't know what was happening, so he pushed it right back in front of him. I think momentum and physics just caused the ball to go in the back of the net. But fair credit to him. He got 2 goals, but whatever.
It was the easiest 2 goals he's gotten in his career. It has to be said.
Seriously.
I mean, I don't want us as a podcast to start getting the stink of being whiners and complainers and haters of our own players.
No, we're not.
But how fun is this though?
Yeah.
Just to pick on somebody who makes way too much money, has a coffee machine, ridiculous looking hair, said the absolute stupidest thing I've ever heard someone say after the Crystal Palace game last year. I mean, look, I'm rooting for him when he's on the pitch, but, I don't have to like him.
Mike, I'm going to drop some knowledge on you guys quick, okay?
As long as that's all you're dropping on us.
The biggest thing that I have with Theo and some of our fan base is they talk about how many goals he scored and the teams he scores against. No one goes back to realize that when he scored against Bayern, when he scored against Liverpool, City, we were losing those games by multiple goals, so his goal gave two shits with the outcome, right? In his career, he scored 112 goals, great, of which 22 were game winnings. That's 20% of the goals he scored have won us a game. Let's go to a comparison now to players that are on similar money. Now, Hazard makes a little bit more than him. He's 122 goals in 37 games. Or excuse me, 37 game-winning goals in 122 games. So
I think Seb's about to have a heart attack about the way you just pronounced his name.
Hazard.
There you go. Was that better, Seb?
It's okay. He's Belgium. It's all right. It
right.
matter.
I know, but at least it's, Hazard.
So, yeah, so 30% of his goals are game-winning. So let's go to Kevin De Bruyne. 71 goals, 20 games. Or excuse me, De Bruyne, 71 goals, 20 of those are game-winning. So that's another 28%, around the same money. Now here's someone almost on half the wage, Mahrez, at Leicester, 28 goals, 17 of which, so almost 50% of his goals are game-winning. So don't fucking come at me, people on Twitter, that Theo is this great player, because his goals usually they don't matter. And
you know who you are.
And you know who you are, fella. But I'll also tell you this, Mike. If you actually go in and you look at Theo's game-winning goals, Doncaster was one of the teams. Newcastle was on there like 4 times. I mean, these are like the worst fucking teams we've played. So
I think 95% of Giroud's goals have been game winners, I think.
Well, all I'm saying is, for the money we've already talked about. The money's on. He's overrated. He's a good servant for the club, but at the end of the day, they were the 2 of the easiest goals he could have scored in his career.
And he's dropping it like it's hot.
A blind person in a wheelchair would have scored those.
Yeah, Wilshere would have scored those if Theo hadn't been so fucking selfish. And then people were slating him for being selfish to try for a hat trick, and I have no problem going along with that. So that brings us to this morning. Very, very early here in the States, and I'm whining about having to get up at 7, but we know quite well that there were people in California that just didn't even bother going to sleep. Saw Steve Manios with his crew with a coffee table that you couldn't even see the coffee table because there were so many beer cans on it, and just stayed up to watch the game at 4 o'clock kickoff. Andy, I'm not going to embarrass you by asking whether you got up at 5 or not, but we know that Fredo was at the pub at 6.
Yes.
Because New Orleans does it right.
I was up at 5:45, Mike.
Well, that's true. You have a baby.
Well, no, but it wasn't because of him. I woke up to pee, and then I was like, all right, I'll go watch. So I was DVRing it.
So you're only going to wake up for the Arsenal if your urinary functions cause you to. They're not enough of a reason on their own.
You know, when you have a newborn and you don't actively wake up at 5 a.m. if you don't have to, you know that.
Yeah. I've been there. All right, so Brighton this morning, the game.
Beautiful town.
The man with the statue underway, the Notchmeister, leads off the scoring in a pinball match.
Yeah.
So happy for him. We spent a lot of time talking about him last week, and I'm now starting to combine my new favorite Arsenal player into the man, the beast, Colasinacho. Cid Real is his last name. But Andy, is there any coincidence that we spent 15 minutes on him in last week's pod, and he repays us with his first ever Emirates goal?
No, I think we know he's a listener of the pod, and I think he just thought
he makes the nacho face throughout the entire podcast.
These fucking guys deserve a goal, and he delivered.
So on that play though, let's obviously not overlook the top play from Lacazette to stretch and keep the ball in from going out on the free kick, and that just set up the game of pinball, which ultimately ended up in our favor. Fredo, was Finn McCool's awake enough at that point to do some shots after that one?
Now everybody was good and ready by 5:45 of waiting outside while they got it all cleaned up, and then I would say for a 6 o'clock kickoff, which I think this is the first one of this year, it was pretty well packed. And part of it was that we had the NFL game right after that. So
Oh, that's right, because they were playing in London. That's right.
Yep, exactly. So everybody was just going to roll right from the Arsenal to the Saints game, all the way from 6 a.m. till noon.
So in other words, 9 hours ago, you had about 16 beverages, and you're still here doing it?
Well, you start off with the iced Irish coffees, and then you move on to the stronger stuff. And that's what you do.
And then you finish off the day with the weakest shit possible. This podcast.
That's right. Exactly.
All right. So
exactly.
So it was a good crowd then.
It was a really good crowd, and I just I think that with Nacho, he's one of those guys who came in at the very last minute of a January transfer window, and everybody kind of went like, "Who's this guy?" And all he's done is establish himself as one of the best defenders in the league. And the fact that he scored his goal is like, well, that's nice. It's like cherry on top. But he's been one of those guys who's consistent year after year for the last few seasons.
Yeah, it's fantastic. And I was surprised to hear it was his first Emirates goal. I distinctly remember him scoring at least a few goals, but I guess they were they were away or they were in cups or something like that. But good for him. I was thrilled for him. Obviously, I don't mean to overlook the ridiculous shot from Lacazette about 1 minute and 12 seconds into the game, but we'd be talking about that all day, all pod long if it had gone in. But it was still an amazing strike. And then in the 40th minute, my favorite part of the game was the running of the Bulls. I mean, I've never seen a 7-on-1 break in football before, and you can never really keep that going. It turned into about a 7-on-5, but somehow we didn't convert. It was like they almost had too many options there, and there's a lot of people on Twitter who were saying, that actually was very, very devastating or disappointing to them because of the type of impact that goal difference can have. But Seb, this running of the Bulls thing was almost meme-worthy in my opinion. How do we not score on that?
I don't know. I mean, I was surprised, and I wasn't surprised, to be honest with you, because how many times have keepers from like lower clubs come to the Emirates and have the game of their lives, and just keep everything out that we shoot at them, and once again, he stopped it, right? It was the keeper that stopped it, I believe, right?
Yeah, it was a good save.
Yeah. Basically, Rambinho shot it directly at the keeper when the entire goal was open. But
it happens way too often where we're just dominating games and we have shot after shot after shot and we just can't capitalize on our opportunities. Luckily enough, we were able to get 2 goals in the game, but yeah, like I said, I was surprised, but I wasn't surprised when it didn't go in.
And you share this. Yeah, you share the same sentiments as my son. He had actually gone to the bathroom like right before that happened, and he was in the bathroom when that happened. So I paused it and I rewound it on the DVR, and I took a video of like the rampage of all the players going down the field. And until Twitter pulled it off the internet because of a copyright violation. Because I was basically showing video of
those motherfuckers.
Until that happened, you could hear my son going, "How did we not score there?" But so yeah, he definitely was along the same lines as you. The second goal for us, just a beautiful lead up, little bit of the beautiful Arsenal there, and what a backheel pass from Alexis. I mean, look, Alexis was pretty class today, I have to say. There's a lot of debate on the pods and the Twitters today about that.
Apparently he was getting a lot of stick after the game, saying that he was playing for himself.
Yeah, I saw that too.
Well, and I saw that from some people that I know and I trust, and that I know were like sitting in the corner near where he was and really able to read his body language. So I take what they have to say seriously. And then on the other side of it, you have people also who were at the game just saying, he gave the ball away. I mean, typical Alexis fare. I mean, he seems to be playing for himself, and he clearly doesn't want to be here, but he's at least getting the job done. And today, if I had to say thumbs up or thumbs down for Alexis, I would give him a thumbs up, but that's just today. So, And by the way, Iwobi's shot was good. It was struck hard, struck pure, but the goalie did like this matrix move where like literally if he had just stood still, it would have hit him in the nose and gone out for a corner. But he like just did the most acrobatic getting out of the way thing I've ever seen. And I also posted a video of that, which was also pulled down on Twitter.
Those motherfuckers.
I've made a lot of enemies on Twitter today. Let's just put it that way. Sorry.
The goalie, you can't expect that backheel to happen. I mean, not at the pace. It was just and the ability for him to roll it to him and for him to just in stride smash it home. There's no way the keeper's saving that. I don't like how people keep saying I've read Alexis's body language on the pitch. You know what?
Was that your imitation of Kenny Ken?
Yeah.
Because I don't think you want.
I'm coming for you, Kenny. I'll box you.
Yeah.
No,
He'll flick you like you were a fly.
Oh no, he would. When he shook my hand, it was just like I felt like he just crushed my soul. And he's like you know what though, man? He's just like a teddy bear too. Such a great guy, but
I know.
But it is hard to read someone's body language, and I think a lot of people got really upset with Sanchez because he took the shot that I think the defender and the keeper both got something on it. He was aiming for the back post, and I think he could have fed through Ramsey maybe or someone on the right. But I was thinking to myself, he wants those type of goals, and so he's going to take that shot. He's an attacking player. And so I didn't think anything of it. I thought he played really well, and his body language to me looked like he gave a shit to be there, you know? So I don't know, Mike. I think that he's going to stay if we win the Champions League this year.
Yeah, well, that's 100% chance he stays if we win the Champions League this year.
Yep.
Absolutely. I see what you did there, by the way. So Mustafi, who, after Monday, I was ready to start calling him Mistakey. Not a bad rebound for his absolute mare against West Brom. Did you notice that he had virtually the exact same situation this time where the defender was basically headed for the byline or the end line or whatever we want to call it, depending on where we live. And he had an opportunity to either square up to him or take his feet out. And last week he took his feet out. This week he didn't. So, kudos to you, Mistakey, for picking up a new skill. But he wasn't bad today. He was average, I would say. And as a center back, you definitely don't want anything worse than average. So it was a tidy game. The 5 or 6 past them thing that we should have put 5 or 6 past them. They're poor. They're terrible. I mean, obviously it's not going to help us win tiebreakers, but I'd rather win 2-0 than 5-2 or 6-2, even though the goal difference is higher. I think it sets the club up for future games a lot better than that. Our third game in 7 days, 8-2 on aggregate and 3 wins from 3. I'll take 2-0 in the third of those games any day of the week. I kind of thought that it might be a little scarier for us than 2-0, and based on the number of minutes we played. So I'm thrilled with it. I'm not at all upset that we didn't do more than that. Fellas, Seb, your man of the match for today.
I would have to say Nacho. Yeah, I got the first goal. Everything settled down. He played great in the back.
Okay, it's a good shot.
I feel, yeah.
It's a good shot, and he's a delicious snack.
Yeah, Nacho Man.
Fredo. Oh yeah, I saw the statue. Right before the podcast, he sends out Seb sends out a tweet with what the statue of Nacho Monreal might look like. The Nacho Man, Randy Savage, and I can't wait to see that in March when I go visit the Emirates. Fredo, who's your man of the match?
I'm going to go for the guy who scored the second goal, Iwobi, just because I love the way he links up with whoever he's playing with. He's one of those guys that you can plug in right now with Alexis, and like I said, and he'll play. You can put him in on a Thursday night, and he'll play really well. So that's my guy for today.
You're not the only person I've heard say that, although when the other person said that, they were mocked mercilessly on the Bergkamp Wonderland post-game podcast. But, it wasn't by me. I don't, I wouldn't have him as my man of the match, but I certainly think this was a very, very good showing for him. The goals are obviously going to do nothing but add to his confidence. It was around this time last year that his confidence started really, really slipping after a good start. So I think the fact that they're managing his minutes carefully and that he's getting bits and pieces into I think that's going to do him better in the long run. So that's a good shout as well. Andy?
Yeah, I was going to say Iwobi as well, and for my man of the match reasons was because he doesn't get a lot of opportunity, and I echo what Fredo was saying. He has great link-up play. He took the opportunity today and slotted into that role pretty tightly. He worked very well up front, and he got a goal. And so, we always ask players when they get the opportunity to make it count, and I think that he is feeling the heat of Jack coming through the side because they play in very similar positions. And so, fair credit to him to make a difference today when it mattered, and hopefully, like you said, we kind of treat him right because he's still very young, and I don't want him to go down that Theo or Chamberlain path. I'd like to see him peppered in every 5 to 6 matches. So he was my man of the match today as well.
Just kind of like sprinkle him in like a nice paprika.
Who on ABW gave him the man of the match?
I believe it was Mr. Josh.
Oh yeah,
gave him the man of the match, and Jason Davies went on a Welsh justice tirade against
beautiful Welsh bastard. Yes. Mike, who is your man of the match?
I'm going to tie it up between the four of us and go with Nacho. I mean, how can I not? The second league game in a row that I'm giving him the man of the match, which is it's huge for him. When you win 3 in a row from me, you get a free absolutely nothing. But 102 completed passes today from Nacho Monreal, which is the second highest total in a Premier League game this season from any player on any team. The first being Danilo for Man City with 108.
Really?
So
both defenders.
I'm dropping. Look who's dropping some knowledge on your ass right now. But yeah, he was massive today, even without the goal that he scored. But and a couple of Nacho faces, which is always a nice touch as well. So yeah, two league wins this week, and one pretty much sealing the group stage of Europa, I think, even though there's still 4 to play. I mean, they're not going to fall out of contention there. So a good week was had by all.
Indeed.
Any issues not related to the games that you'd like to talk about, Mr. Andrew?
No. I mute. No. No. Was there supposed to be some?
So there was 2 quick things you said you were going to mention. But...
Oh, well, yeah, no. So, and one of them reminded me because Fredo mentioned that the NFL game was in London, and I just was curious if you guys saw the Miami Dolphins running back Ayaji meet Thierry Henry. Did you guys see that?
Yeah, I couldn't let him go.
So for those who don't know who he is, he's a running back. He grew up in England, running back for the Miami Dolphins. He's actually pretty decent. Yesterday or 2 days ago, they asked him in a press conference before the game if you weren't playing football, American football, what would you be doing? And he said, I'd be calling Arsene Wenger every day to be an Arsenal player. And then today he got to meet Henry, and they embraced, but Henry broke the embrace, and dude just didn't let go. And it was so funny because when he finally backed up, you could just tell he was looking at his hero, and it was just amazing to see someone who's at the pinnacle of their sport meet Thierry Henry and just absolutely do what the rest of us would do and basically cry like a little bitch. And so I'm not a Dolphins fan, but I love that guy now.
Yeah, he certainly didn't play it cool like Tony Parker.
No,
and they're countrymen of each other. So
they weren't eating baguettes together, Mike.
Yeah, but watch it. Seb's gonna get
Dude loves baguettes too.
Yeah, I agree.
Yeah, who doesn't?
So what's your second? I love baguettes. I was eating them during Passover in Germany, for God's sake. But I ate 12 of them during Yom Kippur. So. And I'm on the Atkins diet, goddammit. So, all right. So, did you have a second point, or you don't remember what that was?
Yeah, no. And then the second one is kind of news that broke yesterday or today, but it looks like Mr. Kroenke is looking to purchase Usmanov's 30% stake, which would take Kroenke's entire ownership of Arsenal to 97%.
Then we can be 97% hopeless for the rest of our days.
So it's like everyone's trying to get this guy out. It looks like he's just cementing his place in. I don't know, man. Yeah, those are my two non-Arsenal match general talking points.
That was a great one. I appreciate that. So,
Fuck you.
So rather than going around the table, I think we could all agree that would be a bad thing if he owns 97%. All right. So I'm going to bring this up, and it really has nothing to do with Arsenal, but it does have something to do with our podcast and the history of it. A few weeks ago, everyone's favorite roly-poly goalie, Wayne Shaw. Do we remember Wayne Shaw from Sutton last year? So, friend of the podcast. He's a man that I can exchange clothing with, and at some point hope to have a pie and beer eating contest with him for the podcast. It did almost happen last April, but so he finally had his case with the FA heard for Piegate, and it was actually a pasty, so it really should have been Pastygate, and he was found guilty as charged. Guilty as charged of violate pasty. Sorry.
You always make fun of me for mispronouncing names, and it's fucking pasty.
All right. Yeah. Well, at least I'm not offending anyone but pasties when I say pasty. So.
Except for all the people in Cornwall.
Sorry, Chris. Guilty as charged of violating FA Rule E5A, which is intentionally influencing a betting market, as well as Rule E31, bringing the game into disrepute. And his punishment was, one was kind of, token. It was a 375-pound fine, although I think it should have been 280 pounds to match what he weighs. But Piers Morgan apparently paid the fine for him, and he was suspended from any football activities for 2 months, which is
that's actually not that bad. And you know who should be paying that fine? The Sun, because they put that bet out and they dangled it in front of him and his cronies, and they or whoever did the initial bet, and those should be the fuckers that should be taken to court over this, because they're the ones that created this big thing. And and it's bullshit, Mike, because you see it a lot today in American, like NCAA, with these athletes taking money. These guys are on very little wage. The dude was doing 6 jobs.
Well, and but he didn't do it for the money. He did it
for a
laugh. Rich. He did, yeah. And so you've kind of preempted the question, but with a good answer. I mean, the question is, well, first of all, I spoke to him afterwards, and he was a bit gutted by being found guilty, but he knew it was going to happen. He's like, you don't beat the FA on a charge, and he's happy to have it all behind him. He's probably halfway through the 2 months already, but. 3 common schools of thought I've heard on this, depending on the person. 1, it was a bonehead move on his part. He should have known better, and he deserves what he got. 2, the real villains are Sunbet, who created the stupid bet in the first place, like you said, Andy. And 3, people should just get a sense of humor and not make such a big deal about it, unless they could prove that he basically gamed the system and led people to bet on him eating the pie, and that they should have just blown it off. So. Seb, what is your view of the outcome here? I mean, which of those 3 camps or a fourth one do you fall into?
I'm going to say number 3, yeah. I mean, the whole thing is fucking ridiculous, to be honest with you. But, I think number 3.
And there's just a lot of hypocrisy about what people get punished for and what people don't. I mean, if you look at this in a vacuum, then, you could probably see multiple different sides of it, of all those outcomes. But if you look at it compared to what people have done that don't get charges, people that bring the game into disrepute and they haven't been suspended or fined, that's where it starts to look ridiculous. But Fredo, what do you think about it?
I'm probably going to go agree with Seb about being in camp number 3. I mean, it wasn't that big of a deal. I understand kind of what the whole idea behind the side bet and doing it, but it's not like, if you were to tell me that he benefited from it, I could believe there may have been some issue, but this is kind of like a victimless crime. Nobody got hurt. There was nobody impacted by it. So it's more the FA just trying to make an example of him because, well, they can. I mean, it's not like if he was, say, a player at Manchester City, I mean, the FA might have brought something out, but he would have had a whole team of lawyers out there defending him.
Yeah,
True.
that's true. And I can tell you, he certainly didn't have that.
Mike,
in this
you
case.
you said it was a bonehead move, but it's not a huge ban. Hopefully, he'll be back to Sutton in his various roles. It seemed like he was a great person for the club and a great ambassador, and hopefully they bring him back.
I think the ship with Sutton has sailed, to be honest with you, but I do know that there are teams and football related activities that are interested in dealing with him, and I hope he finds one that's mutually beneficial.
At the end of the day, we came off worse than anyone, Mike, because he was supposed to come back on the pod weeks after that match to kind of give us the how the whole thing happened. And I remember the two of you were corresponding with it, everything was just on fire for him. And
I was just hoping he was going to get in the game.
Yeah, but you know what? It's so ridiculous, and the FA needs to really clamp down on the likes of the Sunbets and those bullshit guys that do that shit. But hopefully he'll come back on the pod in a few months. Or
well, that was my question, because it's not Arsenal related and it's kind of old news a little bit. But I personally would love to have Wayne back on.
Yeah, let's get him back on. I mean, just as a football supporter, why not?
Yep.
Why not?
And does just doing our podcast count as a FA related football activity? Because we don't want to get his suspension lengthened by doing a Gooners in USA while he's on suspension. So we'll have to have our lawyers check into that. Put Eric on that.
We fought with NBC Sports. We've been kicked off of Twitter. We'll take the FA on.
Yeah, absolutely. And then we could just move to Antarctica or the Seychelles or Mozambique or wherever it was. All right. So the last thing before we do user questions is I was sending out the tweet for user questions, and usually the first go-to meme that I created almost over a year ago, and I'm still using because I'm not very creative like Seb, was a meme of Debussy looking like an idiot on all fours, and it just got me thinking, what exactly would it take for Debussy to be making an on-pitch appearance for Arsenal at this point? I mean, this is my list of players who are likely they're going to get the chance either at center or right side before Debussy, regardless of whether we're 3 or 4 at the back. Starts with Bellerin, Holding, Mustafi, Koscielny, Elneny, Mertesacker, Chambers, Maitland-Niles, Nacho, Abui, Lee Dixon, and even Nelson Vivas would get in before him at this point.
I was about to say we would re-sign Gabriel before Debussy gets into our side.
Gabriel's face is more talented than Debussy, apparently, but I actually don't think that's the case. I'm sure Debussy has something to offer, but there's got to have been something that happened at this point. But I mean, what kind of kinky sex would he have had with Arsen's mother to make him this out of persona non grata? I mean, I just would love to know what it was. And who do we get mad at? I mean, him for sitting on his ass earning $70,000 a week for the next 2 years and saying no to any move that would involve him having to take less, or Arsenal for just botching the opportunity to get rid of him this summer.
I'd say we blame Arsenal, because we could have shipped him off and paid half of that for another club to have paid the rest. So isn't that on us?
Can you do that? I mean, that was what I was going to ask. I know in baseball you got players who are traded and the old team pays half their salary. I mean, can you do that in European football?
Pretty sure you can. I think you pay part of the wage if another team picks up the remaining amount.
And if my suspicions are correct, I'm blaming Arsen's mom for this, because I mean, she must have been just way too tantalizing to pass up.
Slut.
What?
Dirty slut.
I don't even.
I'm working on the meme right now.
It's got to include Debussy as he was being thrown into the boards by Arnautovic, but right next to the boards is Arsen's mother, sitting there with her legs open or something like that. We are really all going to hell. All right, so user questions and comments. First user question, I meant to ask it actually during the intro, but I forgot. So Seb, as you're working on your next masterpiece, what software do you use? If you can actually, give up your trade secrets. Rob Ford wanted to know, where is it? Oh, what programs do you use for those awesome memes, and where did you get training on said programs?
Okay.
Now, are these memes, by the way? I mean, I'm old as fuck, like Andy said. Are they memes?
I never
Photoshops,
said that, but I meant it. So thank you for reading between the
banter
lines.
pics? I said I'm an older gentleman, which to me sounds exactly like old as fuck. So what's the appropriate term?
Wrinkly balls.
I don't even know what appropriate term. Just funny shit, I guess.
Yeah, that's what we're gonna start calling.
That's what I go for. But I it's not a very like hard to use app. It's a simple app for your smartphone. It's called PixArt. And I a few years ago I downloaded it. I was bored. I was just bored, and I was just fucking around with it. Me and my friends were like going through a big like text thread, and one of my friends said something stupid, so I just like photoshopped his face, like I don't remember, like on somebody's body, and like he was getting done up somewhere.
Oh, by the way, the other one that I absolutely loved, and it was kind of like more subtle, but was the one with when Chaz posted the picture of like 1938 Highbury and all the people waiting in line outside in black and white, and I made it some old like I'm old as hell, and I was probably in that line, and then all of a sudden I see a version of that picture with me from when I was holding the Arsenal crest and the Feinberg sign up at Raw. It's just all of a sudden that guy is in the back of the line. That just made me laugh. I'm sure it didn't make anybody else laugh, but it made me laugh. So
yeah, I saw that. Wow, I saw you on Raw the night before, the 2 days before, and I was like, oh wow, somebody has an Arsenal sign at Raw. That's pretty cool. And then I saw you tweet about how you were at Raw the next day. I was like, oh shit, it's you.
October 30th, it will be happening again. Let's just put it there.
Oh my god. Fucking loser.
By the way, Andy,
oh, that's it, Andy.
Because
I'm getting it now.
Because I know exactly what Andy's about to call me. Guess what airline I'm flying over to London in December, Andy?
I've heard it's a really nice airline.
It is a nice airline, but and I don't know if they're going to let me on with my 2 kids, by the way, who are not adopted.
Well,
they were made the old-fashioned way. Right,
did you have to put a sheet between you?
No, I'm not an Orthodox Jew.
Oh, okay.
I had to put a sheet between us, but the hole was too small. So, all right. So
it was at the wrong end.
All right. What does this have to do with Arsenal?
Penetration.
All right. So yeah, which we had a lot of today with no end result. And it's just going to get worse because our next question is from Danny, the GFP, who says, if you had to share a bath with any Arsenal fan, who would it be? Ooh. And Danny is obsessed with having a bath with me. I don't know where this came from. I got some news for you, Danny. There's not going to be any room for water in that bath, but we'll take the question seriously. Any Arsenal fan, who would you share a bath with?
I can go first, Mike, since or Fredo's ready, because I know that
No, I was gonna ask bath or shower, because there's a difference.
You gotta bathe them. You gotta bathe them.
We're talking the whole rub-a-dub-dub, 2 weird guys in the tub type of situation.
Okay, go ahead.
I'll go first. I'll give you guys some time to think. Because I obviously got to see the question.
I think the better answer you're going to have.
Yeah, no. Okay, so I've got mine comes in 2 parts, Mike. The first one is Allison Felix. Allison Felix. She is a track and field star for the U.S. She is a dime piece. You should Google her right now. She is incredibly attractive. She would be my number 1 bath time.
By the way, I have never in my life heard the word dime piece before used that way, or used in any way, as a matter of fact.
The second person, also a dime piece, okay? Freddie Prinze Jr.
You are a little obsessed with Freddie Prinze Jr. The 3rd pod we had just finished, and he's like, we got to get Freddie Prinze Jr. on the pod. And
Dude loves Arsenal.
I'm like, is Freddie Prinze Jr.? I mean, he's an Arsenal fan, but 1 out of maybe 100,000 tweets he sent out is about Arsenal, so he's not that big of an Arsenal fan.
Doesn't matter. I want to bathe with him.
Okay. All right, just Fredo, before this gets any more disturbing, have you...
Any more wow. Okay.
Did you guys Google Allison Felix yet?
Oh no, I mean, that was a fix. I mean, she is. You could go dime piece, and you would not be incorrect.
Mm-hmm.
Well,
What's the difference
let me
between a dime pice and a cod piece? Is there any difference?
very much a difference. I'll just go simple. I'll go the Queen of England.
Oh, damn!
We've just
Fredo's going after that.
We have just lost every English listener we had, and oh my God!
You know, can I go back to England now?
I don't think. I don't think.
Okay, let me change my mind. Let me change it right quick. I'll just go Joey Murphy.
Oh,
Son of a bitch! You took mine. You actually did take mine. That's the sad thing, Sebastian.
I just looked up on Twitter, and Dido is
Okay.
an Arsenal fan, so I'm gonna have to say her. She can sing to me while she bathes me.
Nice. That's one soothing ass bath right there.
I have not
Yeah,
heard that name for a long time.
Funny enough, I was looking through my wife's CDs the other day, and I found it, and I was like, "Oh, I haven't listened to this in years." So I put it in
Was she pissed with you after you took the CD out of the bath?
No.
It's funnier when it doesn't take me 10 tries to get it out. But so yeah, you actually did take mine. I was going to end up with Joey Murphy, but so maybe there's room for 3. But it would be normal to say something like Allison Felix or Amanda or Becca or something, something, or I don't like my wife or something like that maybe. But no, I'm gonna go with Bully. We all know Bully. Because that dude just really looks like he needs a bath, and I will sacrifice myself to make sure to get him clean. Because if that's got to be the only way to get the job done, and if he weren't available, I would be definitely choosing Joey. And I think I actually came pretty darn close to taking a bath with him at Gunnergral last year. I was in bed with him. I know that much, and we got the photo to prove it. So, next question. Since
You're gonna have a photo to prove this bath in about a minute.
Oh God! Just make sure he has the nose ring and not me, because that would be crossing the line.
Oh, you know what picture I'm using for you? The one when you're
The
about to
steak
eat that
picture.
steak.
Oh yeah, that was the great. By the way, I don't know what holiday you celebrate, but Merry whatever, because that picture is one of the most versatile pictures of me.
Oh my God!
Getting ready to bite a 4-pound steak. So, from Dean Worley from Atlanta, would you like now we go into a very serious question. Would you like Arsenal to sack Arsene now and have Carlo Ancelotti replace him? Fredo.
No.
There's not even a joke that could be made about that.
Yeah, no, exactly. No, I mean, there's some element to think about eventually replacing Arsene, and Ancelotti would make a great sense as a transitional manager. But firing Arsene right now to hire Ancelotti would throw the whole team into chaos. So why do it now?
Yeah, I mean, it unfortunately for those who want Wenger out, he's kind of in the middle of a good patch right now, and believe it or not, since since that Liverpool game, and since we probably got rid of what turns out to be every bit of the bad mojo that we've had for the last 3 years and sent him to Liverpool, things are actually looking up a little bit. So this would probably be the wrong time to do it. But, Ancelotti's not going to wait around forever.
Yeah, wait till February if he's still available and we hit our back.
Yeah. So, Andy, would you pull the trigger on that?
No.
Would you pull the trigger on that at the end of the season if we don't get Champions League football or win obviously if we don't get Champions League football?
No, at this point, there's only 2 men that I'd pull that trigger for, and it's Diego Simeone and or Alexis Sanchez, because I feel like if we give him complete control of the locker room, I think he'll stay.
Player manager.
Yeah, player. If we make him a player manager, he stays. But no, I mean, listen.
Dog banner out.
Listen. We're not going to get rid of Arsene. He's going to see out all contracts, and so I wish our fan base would just give that rhetoric up at this point.
We have a better chance of Carlo Ancelotti's grandson being our next manager than Carlo Ancelotti.
At this moment, yes, but I think there are better managers for our team than Carlo Ancelotti. And think about it. with respect to Arsene, he's built a program, he's built a system, and so the best thing for Arsenal is to bring a manager in who plays very like football to Arsene, so you're not now having to remove 8, 9, 10 players from our system. And so I think that's why there's certain managers out there that would just fit our system better. And so, yeah, it's a great question, but no. And Ancelotti, you know he's going to end up at probably a Spanish team because those guys fire managers, you know, like every other week. So
at the rate he's at, all of a sudden, you know, the Real Madrid job might be reopening up again pretty soon after being the best manager ever, now in 6th place. But anyway, enough about that. Nacho the Gooner is back with a question. Every time Nacho Monreal has a studly performance, we get a question from Nacho the Gooner.
Respect.
Andy, this one's for you. Why hasn't Arsene given Jack some Premier League playing time yet? Not even 15 minutes at the end of games.
You know, as I said earlier, I truly believe it's because we are giving him the opportunity to come back and really take his time. And I thought about that too. And 15 minutes in the Premier League is a lot because it's a way more physical game. He has a target on his back, and not a target where people want to go out and injure the guy, but he carries the ball a lot. He makes quick plays, and so English defenders and defenders who play in this league go in quicker and harder. And so I just think naturally to get his muscles and his bones up to speed, we're going to play him against lesser opposition in less combative games. And so I think we're doing it the right way.
So do you think then, I mean, with 2 weeks until our next game, just under 2 weeks until our next game, you don't think we'll see him at Watford at all?
I think
the next game being against Red Star?
If we play under 23s over the international break, which I'm not sure if they do, I bet he features in some of those matches. But no, I don't think we see him in the Premier League. Maybe with 15, 20 minutes left, maybe. But with Red Star coming up, why not just rest him for that?
Yeah, and
put him through the paces. I'm sorry, what'd you say?
I said, you know how we'll know whether they play U23 games during the international break?
Tell me.
We'll hear a big cracking sound from across the pond.
Oh God, that was terrible.
Yeah. So, way to bring the things down to the halt. All right, our last question is from Mr. DJ, who I think is like a second cousin of Mr. DT. But he asks, thoughts from each panelist on improving the Emirates mausoleum with drums/megaphone speaker, getting fans to make some noise. Fredo, what are your thoughts about kind of juicing, I guess you could say, the stadium to get some atmosphere in there for once?
See, I don't know that I'm necessarily a fan of trying to inject that. Like, it's one thing if it happens naturally, the supporters sing, somebody brings a drum kit or whatever, drums or whatever, starts making noise. If it's coming from the fans, one thing. Whenever the club tries to do something, just throw it in and try to make it part of the experience, it just feels fabricated and unreal. It's kind of like, what was it? How many years did we play The Wonder of You ahead of a match? Because they were trying to make it a thing, and then it started. Then one day they just realized nobody cares, and they stopped. So I don't think it would benefit us to do that.
All right, and Seb, where do you fall on that? First of all, have you been to the Emirates?
No, I haven't. I've never been able to go.
But have you heard what it's the level of
here? Yeah. You can see it on TV how there's no atmosphere. Maybe try to put safe standing in the stadium. I mean, it's done well up in I believe Celtic have safe standing. In Germany they have safe standing, and they have amazing atmosphere at Dortmund and at Bayern. Maybe lowering, or just try doing putting a survey out there and seeing who would want to move where they're sitting now to a singing section, or who doesn't want to sing. You go, okay, you can go over here. Just try to do something to get that place pumping, because it's sometimes you feel like we don't have a home field advantage, because it drives me crazy when I see it on TV, because you see the away support right there on TV. They're all standing, they're all cheering, and then
the away support at the Emirates is always massive. It's always good. I remember Anderlecht. Obviously, we've heard about Cologne.
Yeah.
And it's just unbelievable.
Why don't we put the away supporters like on the upper deck? Like at Newcastle, the away supporters are on the upper deck. They're not on. You don't see them. You barely hear them. Like why are the away supporters at the Emirates right there for everybody to see? They should be put up in the rafters where no one could see them. And why don't we put our own like singing section there? That'd be great. It'd be.
Yeah, I agree with you 100% on that.
Well, remember, Mike, when we had Lee and I think Scott on way back when, and Craig, and and you know what, Craig, you haven't even had me on your pod yet, so don't bitch about it only being on our pod once.
By the way, way to alienate the guests that we're having on next week.
I know we are. That's why I said it. and to be fair to him, he did ask me a while ago, and I couldn't do it. But anyway, just to go to your point before you go, we talked about that. We said, if you became Stan Kroenke tomorrow, what would you do? And no one said, I would just influx cash and buy all these players. Every one of us said, we would change the atmosphere at the Emirates. So if I'm answering this question, I'm saying pump the fucking noise in. Do what the NFL used to do and have little microphones around the stadium so when one section of the stand starts singing, it echoes to the other side, because that's the problem at the Emirates. One stand starts it, and it doesn't get to the other side of the stadium quick enough. So fucking pump away. Change the layout, make it as loud as possible, and I'm all for using microphones and speakers to get that fucking thing going.
Well, I was just thinking a great idea, maybe even cheaper. Just fly in 10,000 Cologne fans. Look, there's 10,000 Cologne fans just come in. You gotta sing, though. That's a catch.
Yeah, these are all versions of steroids for crowds. Last year when we had Robbie from Arsenal Fan TV on back in April last year, and he mentioned that he was actually asked by Arsenal management to serve on a panel or a group that to contribute some ideas towards improving the atmosphere, and that was actually why he went to Dortmund. And I a week later actually went to Dortmund and stood on the yellow wall, and I mean it's just unfreaking believable, and it's not forced. There are loudspeakers and drums and stuff. I mean, there were times I was looking around and see if I was about to get put on a bus somewhere, but I was a little nervous. Guys with megaphones just going, but it was intense though. I mean, it was completely intense. Everyone was into it, and it wasn't fake, and it was just sensory overload. So. Obviously you want to see a rabid atmosphere with singing and noise. I personally I think, Fredo, I think you had said, I'd like it to be without any kind of gimmicks. I'd like it to just be organic, but with a 60,000 seat stadium with prices so high where you have half of the stadium are tourists, that's the trouble. And I think that the safe standing, the reallocating people's seat locations so that you can get supporters sections like they even do now at MLS games. I think that would be the best way to do it at the Emirates. And if that doesn't work, shot callers, I think is the next way to go. So thank you, users, for your questions. Appreciate it. Love to hear from some new users with some questions. We have not that we don't appreciate our weekly question from Fredo and and all the others, but we want to get some new juice in here. So juice, I said, not Jews. Nope. Thank goodness we have no picks this week due to the interlull. I'm sliding and sliding and sliding, but and someone who wasn't, the guest spot is just on a tear right now. Elliot last week put a 3 spot on us, and we only got 1 each. So the guest spot has 15. I've got 12. Andy 9. So that's about it. New countries, we're stuck at 98. After adding Iran to the list last week. The world's kind of taking a breather right now as we keep steaming towards 100, but we'll get there soon.
I really hope the 100th is the Vatican, man.
Oh, you're going.
No, we're both going.
Wherever it is, you're going.
And we're going to parade you through the streets.
I'm not allowed in the Vatican.
I know, that's why we're taking you. It's gonna be glorious.
You're just gonna leave me there.
Sebby, meme that shit.
The power of Christ compels you.
He's gonna have a whole like ceiling of the.
It's gonna be like a Dan Brown novel.
It's gonna be the Sistine Chapel with like a bunch of like naked mics on there or something like that. Ron Jeremy all over the ceiling. Next week is another interlull podcast. 3 in 3 months. Actually, there's 4 in 4 months. Well, the first one was before the season started, but the interlull podcast starting to have a little trend to them, and I'd probably throw this one in there as well. They're not safe for work. They're not safe for children. They're definitely not safe for marriages. We'll probably see the return of the world-renowned interlull game, What's More Important Than Arsenal, and we're having your great friend on who you completely what's the word that you did that will make me ring the bell?
Rusty trombone.
Yeah, there you go. That isn't exactly what I was thinking. But you slated him.
Same thing.
And you can't figure out which is his first name and which is his last name. But Craig Scott should be on with us. Second guest, who may or may not be Lee Gunner, will be with us, and we'll have plenty of other hijinks. So, if you want to listen to that, if you have just finished listening to this, please put us. If you're on YouTunes, give us a rating.
YouTunes, Jesus Christ,
Did
you're
I say
old.
YouTunes?
You are showing your age, man.
If you're on MyTunes or Prodigy,
Prodigy.
Please give us a thumbs up on CFAX, and
please fax your questions into us.
Please fax your review into us, and we'll decide whether we send it into the internet or not, and help us spread word about the pod. So, lads, I love the fact that you guys both don't really know each other too well, but just meshed perfectly into this circus that we have here, and then added that special effect to the pod. But Seb, I hope our users will follow you on Twitter. It's at SebbyV21, and see the contributions you've made to the podcast. I may try to put them all together and just post them in one thread. What the heck is that? Oh, is that your son? Oh, God.
Mike, if you have a chance, check your Twitter right now.
Oh my God, no! I don't want to do that. So, and I know that you make an appearance every once in a while on another podcast. So, oh my God, did you have to make it look like I was trying to eat him?
Looked like you're about to make.
That is the most disgusting thing I've ever asked for.
Oh, hey, Mike. Sorry, we have one more user question before we go.
That's right. Okay.
Sorry, this is that's my bad. Oh my God, I would have been murdered if I didn't ask you. Okay, this user question comes from the beautiful Guna Girl 1969.
Jeez. Very nice.
Very nice.
What is she up to?
She says, "So Mike, I want to know if there was a worldwide shortage of Prosecco or bananas, what would you not live without? What could you not live without?
Prosecco or bananas? Which could I not live without?
Smile, cry face emoji. Smile, cry face emoji.
Well, I love some Prosecco, me, as she likes to say. She puts me at the end of everything she says. But I probably couldn't live without bananas because there's no other fruit that's got that perfect shape to go to places where nothing else has been. Plus, Prosecco could be easily replaced by a number of other things. So I would say I could not live without bananas in an answer that will probably surprise many. But thank you for your wonderful contribution. I think we have a podcast that was titled Prosecco, Bananas and Prosecco. And I will go to my grave not explaining why that's funny to anybody. So thank you, Amanda. So anyway, where was I, Seb? Feel free to plug the other podcasts that you do or anything else that you're up to that you would want people to check out.
Yeah, my buddies, they do a podcast called Dinner and a Podcast. It's all about pop culture, movies, music, comics, and whatnot. It's a once a week pod. It's out every Monday. really funny. I'm actually playing a foot golf tournament with them this weekend. So yeah, give them a listen. Really funny guys. Very, very funny.
And we're gonna add at least 2 people to your audience based on that plug. So
Oh, sweet.
it's a fantastic. You just don't get that for free every day. So
Thank you very much.
awesome. Well, and thank you for your contributions, which are just scaring me more and more. That I'm looking at this thing and
I can't see it. Where did you send it to?
It's in the DMs. It slid into your DMs.
Oh, into the DMs.
But that should actually be the Arsenal singing section. I mean, it looks like you guys are starting it off right there.
Holy shit!
So whose body is that now? Because again, that looks like mine.
No.
Whose body did you use?
You are Ricky Gervais, and Billy is Conan O'Brien.
Oh my god! Well,
That's about right.
All right, so Fredo, I'm looking forward to seeing you and your colleagues again in January. I cannot wait for this. I've marked the dates in my calendar. I've made the plane reservations. I'm sure it'll be the biggest one yet. So, if someone wants to check this out and learn a little bit more about it before they start making plans, what would they do?
Go check out Gunnergrad.com. You can take a look at photos from the past 4 Gunnergrad.
Is it Gunnergrad.com or GunnergrafV.com?
No, Gunnergrad.com.
Okay.
It's Gunner and then GRAS, all one word, .com. And you can take a look at kind of what we've done. There's an itinerary giving you a description of all the events that we got planned for this year, where at. So, and then you can register already. And if you're planning on register, I recommend doing it before the 15th of November, because we'll probably have to go up a bit in price after that. So
plus, if you do it before the 15th of November, you get an autographed photo of Andy when you arrive at the first event.
You're welcome, ladies.
Yeah, well, that's right. That's right. So yeah, no, and there's you can take a look at some of the stuff that we kind of got together. There's some hotel blocks that we've got some kind of room rates already set up, but obviously because that's Mardi Gras time, they want to know if you're coming or not. So if you're interested, come on down. You're gonna have a good time. That's the best way I can say it. You're gonna have a blast. It's a lot of fun.
I definitely want to go. I can't make it this year. I have a young son, but hopefully next year I'll be down there for Gunnergrad. It sounds amazing. I saw pictures from last year. It looks like a great time.
You and Andy's new sons can just hang out together while the 2 of you are at Gunnergrad.
Exactly.
I'm just gonna bring mine. Father of the Year.
You're bringing
Father of the Year.
See Ollie walking down Bourbon Street.
He's been to the Emirates. Why not Gunnergrad?
It's gonna be my wingman. Either he or my wife is gonna be my wingman. We'll see which happens. I love you, Steph. By the way. All right, so that's about it for this week, gentlemen. Thank you for. I say that with all very, very light meaning to the word gentleman, but you're gentlemen and scholars. I appreciate it. Can't wait to see the Twitter back and forth that's going to happen. But Andy, have a great week.
You as well. I'm off to LA this week, Mike, to film a movie. So I'll be reaching out to our Leo DiCaprio friend, and he'll be on the pod soon. You have a wonderful week as well, and Yom Kippur to you, sir.
Yom Kippur is now a verb. All right, let's end this before it gets any worse. Come on, you Gooners.